High up in a solitary valley, Lencho's farmhouse sat looking over a river and a vibrant, thriving cornfield. It was a peaceful corner of the world, and for Lencho, this patch of green was his entire life. Looking closely at the cornstalks, you could see little white flowers starting to bloom. This is the visual cue for a farmer that the harvest, or fasal, is going to be excellent. The only thing the earth desperately needed right now was a good downpour. So when huge black clouds rolled in from the northeast and heavy raindrops began to fall during dinner, Lencho was thrilled. He actually ran outside just to feel the water on his skin. To him, these drops of water were literal currency falling from the sky. The small drops were 5-cent pieces, and the big ones were 10-cent coins. A good rain guaranteed a highly profitable year. Lencho and his family were entirely reliant on this single weather event. Their food, their income, and their survival for the next 12 months rested exclusively on the success of this impending crop. But the gentle rain didn't last. Suddenly, violent winds ripped through the valley. The sweet raindrops were instantly replaced by massive, heavy hailstones that began tearing violently through the green leaves of the cornstalks. The storm raged for an entire hour. When it finally stopped, Lencho stepped out into a landscape completely buried under a thick layer of white salt. Every single leaf was stripped from the stalks. The flowers were gone. The crop was entirely wiped out by the hailstones, leaving Lencho's livelihood completely destroyed. Standing right in the middle of his ruined fields, Lencho told his sons that even a plague of locusts, a swarm of rapidly multiplying crop-eating insects, would have left more food behind than the ice did. The earth had taken back everything it promised. Without seed to replant or corn to eat, Lencho's family was facing a year of guaranteed starvation. They needed a literal miracle. Lencho was a man who worked like an ox in the fields, but he possessed an absolute, unshakable belief in God. He believed the divine could see everything, even deep in a person's conscience, and would never allow a hard-working family to starve to death. So, by candlelight the very next Sunday, he sat down and wrote a letter. He addressed it directly to God, explaining the weather disaster and specifically requesting exactly 100 pesos, the local currency, so he could replant his fields and keep his family alive until the next crop grew. He walked into town, slipped the letter into an envelope, and wrote "to God" on the outside, attached a stamp, and dropped it straight into the post office mail slot. This gives us a fascinating look into Lencho's mind. He didn't view the divine as an abstract, distant concept. To him, God was a reliable contact you could simply write to, and who would physically mail financial aid right back. When the local postman emptied the mailbox, he found the envelope. Seeing a letter addressed directly to heaven, he broke down into uncontrollable laughter. He carried the strange envelope to his boss, the postmaster. The postmaster was a large, friendly man, and he initially laughed out loud too. But almost immediately, he tapped the letter on his desk and turned deeply serious. He was profoundly moved by the farmer's raw, unfiltered faith. The postmaster wished he possessed that same level of absolute certainty in his own life. Deciding that Lencho's belief should not be broken, the postmaster came up with a plan. Replying to this letter required actual cash, not merely ink and paper. So he gave up a portion of his own salary and asked friends and post office employees to contribute as a personal act of charity. As this gauge shows, hitting that 100 peso goal proved entirely impossible. Even after pooling all their resources together, the postal workers maxed out at exactly 70 pesos. They put the cash in an envelope, signed it with a single word, God, and waited for Lencho. Ordinary human empathy stepped in to quietly play the role of the divine. The postmaster wanted no credit, only to help the desperate man. But this act of anonymous kindness set the stage for a massive misunderstanding. The following Sunday, Lencho arrived at the post office slightly earlier than usual. When the postman handed him the thick envelope, Lencho didn't show even the slightest hint of surprise. He fully expected God to reply. But upon tearing open the envelope, as his hands quickly snapped through the paper currency, his supreme confidence instantly twisted into intense anger. Lencho counted only 70 pesos. His logic was airtight in his own mind. God is perfect and does not make mathematical errors. Therefore, the missing 30 pesos must have been stolen by the post office employees before the envelope reached him. Seething with frustration, Lencho marched up to the public writing desk. He grabbed paper and ink, aggressively scribbled a second letter, angrily licked a stamp, slammed it with his fist, and stormed out of the building. Lencho's absolute devotion created a tragic blind spot. His unyielding certainty in a higher power made it completely impossible to recognize the reality of ordinary human generosity standing right in front of him. As soon as the door swung shut, the postmaster rushed over to read the reply. Inside, Lencho wrote back to God, demanding the remaining 30 pesos because his family still needed the cash. But he included one highly specific instruction: do not send it through the mail. Lencho explicitly warned God to bypass the postal workers, completely writing them off as a total bunch of crooks. This is the textbook definition of irony. Irony occurs when the actual outcome is the exact opposite of what you naturally expect. You expect a man saved from starvation to be deeply grateful. In reality, he angrily calls his helpers thieves. The ultimate irony lies right here. The exact people he insults are the ones who sacrifice their paychecks to save him. It leaves us with a difficult question. Was Lencho's anger entirely justified by the sheer strength of his faith? Or was this a cruel, unfair twist of fate for a kind-hearted postmaster? Let us know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into classic stories.